William Townsend is accused of stealing money from hard-working renters. A witness told police one of them was a single mother who was almost kicked out of her apartment when her rent money was nowhere to be found. He worked at the Greenwood at Marketplace apartment complex in East Point. Tonight, he's facing charges for fraud and theft by conversion. According to a police report, another worker told investigators when tenants paid their rent with money orders, Townsend made them out to himself instead of the complex. A witness told police some of the residents risked eviction because they had no idea that they paid their rent. Now, court records show Townsend was also accused of theft in 2014, but those charges were dropped. Sources tell us he also served as a pastor at multiple churches, and we spoke to a former co-worker who did not want to show their face but is familiar with these allegations.
I think that is the lowest that a person could be, to actually steal hard-working people rent money. And you took their money, took their rent money. Some of these people faced eviction because they had no way of proving that they had paid their rent.
And we reached out to the apartment complex for comment, and we were disconnected during our conversation. Now, witnesses told us this was not the only apartment complex Townsend worked at. Tonight, we're continuing to dig into his past, and that includes his involvement with local churches. We'll have much more tonight on the Late Feed at 11.